Well, here I am, it's the middle of the night, setting off to go to Norway to meet a very unusual Viking man who's made an incredible discovery, which is very close to my heart because it's around serpent worship. So I'm going to get up in the middle of the night, drive miles to the airport, battle the trucks along the way, and take 2 planes to the middle of nowhere. Great fun.
Southerly weather, some further warm sunshine developing or redeveloping for the afternoon. There's still a scattering of sharp showers, but very few if any, from south east of England.
Okay, well here I am, finally made it all the way to Norway. I'm up in some wonderful mountains and I'm going to go meet Harald, the man who's made an incredible discovery. And we're going to go and find out about this discovery and we're going to see a bit of Norway. So let's go and find Harald.
Hello, Phil. Likewise. All the way to Norway.
Glad you made it. Let's go inside and get started. Yeah. Finally made it all the way to Norway. Thank you for inviting me into your home.
My pleasure.
First of all, whereabouts are we in Norway?
Well, we're about in the middle of southern Norway in a valley called Østerdalen, which means the East Valley.
Right, okay, so we seem to be surrounded by a lot of mountains.
Yes.
This is a very picturesque place.
Yes, it is. I mean, it's really part of the most mountainous part of Norway.
And I understand that you had a remarkable, very strange upbringing, really. You know, compared to most people.
Well, you might say that. My father was in the diplomatic corps, so we travelled all over the world, really, staying about 3 years in each place.
You've lived in Norway now for a good number of years. You're a true blood Viking. This thing that you've uncovered, I mean, I find it absolutely remarkable, not least of which because of the links into serpent worship, things that are close to my own heart, but because it's actually a physical and tangible thing. But what led you to make this discovery?
Well, to tell the truth, that's rather funny. I was just looking for a place to spend my vacation. So I always wanted to visit the round church in Trondheim, and I got the map out, and okay, I looked at Trondheim. Then I suddenly remembered that there was another round church in Norway, which made it also quite exciting. So, and that was rather at the bottom of the map in a city called Tønsberg. And then I put out a ruler just for the sake of it, just to see how far they were apart. And when I put the ruler on the map, I saw, to my amazement, that they were actually on exactly the same longitude.
Really?
So from there on, I said, hey, I have to have a little closer look at this.
I mean, that's quite unusual. I mean, it's not coincidence, is it? The only two round churches.
Yes, they are. Yes, and they're from about the same age. So.
And what period?
That would be around the 1100s.
1100s, very important period, really. Yes, and it's important because this is the expansionist period of Christianity in many ways.
Exactly.
Yes, when they were bringing back many ideas, also from the Crusades. Yeah, where they came into contact with their Muslim counterparts and discovered all kinds of mathematics and medicine, sacred geometry and all kinds of
exactly
things. And so the sacred geometry and the mathematics themselves makes one wonder what you've really discovered here. So we've got a line running from Trondheim down to Tønsberg.
Tønsberg, yes.
Tønsberg. So this period that we're talking about, the 900s to the 1100s, what did that mean for the Vikings at that time? Because this was a land of Vikings, wasn't it?
It was. And the funny thing is, I mean, they were out on, usually call it raids, but, well, they did that, of course, but at the same time, the exciting thing is that one after the other, 3 Norwegian kings-to-be, they visited the British Isles, and especially the Celtic parts. And they came into contact with the Celtic Church, apparently, and they stayed there. I mean, it says in Snorre, the sagas.
Yes.
It tells a bit about this, and especially one story of King Olav Tryggvason, which stayed with Celtic monks on the Isles of Scilly, and according to the sagas, King Olav and his men, they were trained by these monks.
Is this the same Olav that then later became the patron saint?
No, that's the next one, next king.
Next king.
And he also came from the British Isles, and when they left from Norway, he brought with him monks, Celtic monks, priests and soldiers, and it was obvious that they had something in mind.
So really, what is it about the Celtic Church which is so different? I mean, most people won't really know about the Celtic Church. What differs them from the Catholic Church?
Quite a few things. One thing is that they were occupied with gnosis, knowledge, which the Catholic Church, well, I guess they're quite the opposite. They would like to hinder knowledge.
And this gnosis is a special kind of knowledge, isn't it? It's not the kind of knowledge that you gain from books, necessarily.
No, it's personal experiences with your God or whatever. Yeah.
So in that respect, for the Catholic Church at that time, and probably even today, they insist that you go via the priest to the deity.
The Catholics do, yes.
Whereas the Celtic Church, very much sounding like the early Gnostics, and may actually have origin in that. say that you can approach the divine yourself.
Exactly.
Without having to pay the priest.
Yes.
So therein we have a good reason for the Catholic Church not to necessarily like Celtic Church. Okay, so the two enemies of the Catholic Church at that time we're looking at here are the Celts,
Yeah,
the Celtic Church,
Yeah.
and this warrior elite of the Vikings, who were very terrifying for most of Europe, as you well know, regardless of whether we know the fact that they raided and pillaged as much as is claimed, but they certainly influenced a wide area, didn't they?
They did. Or the whole of the British Isles, and also further south. I mean, they went as far south as Constantinople, where they fought for the emperor.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they had a wide knowledge of what we call the world then. And they came back with impulses and knowledge, and so, I mean, they knew the Catholics, they knew different religions, and actually the raiding of the Vikings on the British Isles, most likely that was not to enrich themselves, but it was rather to stop the spreading of the Catholic Church.
This is really interesting stuff, isn't it? Because this is kind of revealing a warfare within the West, not necessarily the Crusades of the East, that the Catholic world were taking on, but the Catholic Church were also taking on a little battle here.
Oh yes,
in
definitely.
the West between the Celtic Church and the Vikings, two very powerful influences. Not least of which because we have the peaceful brethren of the Celtic Church with their knowledge of Gnosis, knowledge of the self and the divine. But we also have here the terrifying concept of the Vikings. So uniting those two things together, it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like this is a major obstacle for the Catholic Church to overcome.
Most definitely. So in a way, they were stopped in Denmark, you might say. I mean, they never made it to Norway. I mean, the Catholics never made it to Norway until 1152.
Right. This is following the period of this discovery that you...
Exactly.
Laten ons drinken dan de klinkers en laat ons inderen als vlinders en ook roze olifanten en laat ons de sterren raken. Alleen dronken is een man vrij, alleen een bier maakt een man blij, zodat hij niks meer moet vrezen, behalve zijn vrouw.
I showed this to the local priest and the local politicians and so forth, hoping to get a little help or an interesting discussion. At least when I went to the priest, I mean, I was just about thrown out.
This is not surprising, really, is it? Because what you've
Not
discovered
really.
is something very powerful from before their time
Oh yes.
in this area.
Yeah. So,
But other people, some very famous people, have actually backed what you've discovered too.
yes.
Namely Henry Lincoln.
Yes, exactly. I met Lincoln and showed him my geometry, and he was quite enthused.
Henry Lincoln, for the people at home, I mean, we know that Agent Blian Lincoln wrote the infamous Holy Blood, Holy
Yes.
Grail, which Dan Brown, of course, based the Da Vinci Code upon. So he's incredibly famous for that, but he's also famous for something else, isn't he?
You're now referring to the south of France.
Yes.
Yes, we found that some small villages, of which one is Rennes-le-Château, they made up holy geometry. First and foremost, the pentagram.
What I find really interesting about this link between yourself and the work that Henry Lincoln's done is not least the Celtic Church link. The fact that in the south of France, where he's made these discoveries and where there are an awful lot of other things that are afoot, down there, we're talking about an area that was deeply enriched with the Cathar influence. And anybody who does the research on the Cathars, the Perfecti, whatever you want to call them, they have many names in different areas, is that their knowledge is also based on the early Gnostic principles, that this may have come and been rooted in the Essene, which gave us many of the Gnostic Gospels, from the Hammadi texts to the Dead Sea Scrolls. So that influence into the south of France is also found up here in Norway from the Celtic Church, who we're also saying has this Gnostic influence. So this is kind of some strange kind of magic that seems to be spread abroad from this Gnostic, this lost kind of era that is only lost mainly because it was eradicated by the Catholic Church. That's what the history seems to tell us. So I find it fascinating that you both discovered actually real physical evidence of some incredible magic. So just like to ask you about the magic. What do you think about, what are they really doing here? Why are they placing these sacred markers on the earth?
Well, this is really quite exciting. I mean, they produced, you might say, a talisman on a very, very grand scale. And a talisman is something that will connect you with the Godhead. And people often wore talismans of different sorts on their body, on their clothes, underneath their clothes. I found that it was constructed by using a compass, ruler, and the old geometrical formula of the golden rule. This is really what this is all about. It's the Celtic magic that they brought to Norway, and they laid it out across the country in order probably to enhance what they were doing. You have to have the knowledge, and you have to have, of course, the golden mean, because this is the key to the whole thing, really. And without it, you would never find it. But when you know that that is the key, you can unlock it and you can find the design.
Well, Harold, it's now time I really think that you should show me exactly what it is that you found on the ground, on a map, in the same order that you found them in.
I'd love to, because this is really exciting. Now, the map of Norway will just spread out on the table here. Let's see. Right, so that's fine, yeah.
Now here we have Trondheim. which was called Nidaros. And this has the round church, the first round church, the first marker. Now the second round church is in Tunsberg, and I'll show you what I did. I'll just get this long piece of wood and I'll place it on Trondheim where the round church is, and down to Tunsberg where the second round church is, and then draw a line through that or those points, like so.
Okay, right now we're on our way to a place called Trondheim, which is the head of the pentagram that Harald's discovered. But there's more than that. This place used to be known as Nidaros, which, according to Harald, and I absolutely believe him because this is the etymology of the place, Nidaros used to mean ancient serpent wisdom. So this is going to be an interesting trip.
Now we've come all the way to Trondheim, earlier known as Nidaros, a place of serpent worship. And this is the Nidaros Cathedral, and it's quite interesting to see that one of the things that we meet, or meets our eye, is the serpent handle on the door.
Right now we're at Munkholmen, where they built the first round church just outside of Nidaros. Inside these walls is actually a real narrow staircase that goes around, circles around the church upwards, and this was then the real round church, not the walls you see around it, which were part of the fortress. So, where are we now, Harold? Right now, we're at the very bottom of the round church. Later, of course, when it was not a round church and any longer used as such, it was used as a jail. And here, people could sit for perhaps 2 months without light, without heating, and that would finish them off completely. In the olden days, this was the place for a barren little island where they beheaded criminals and the like, and put their heads on the stakes for the birds to clean it off. Now, of course, this is the Trondheim Fjord, where the long, beautiful Viking ships would be sailing out to foreign countries and sail back with the loot.
Okay, so the next thing I did really was, as I mentioned earlier, was finding the spots that were built from 900s to 1150 and see what places were here. And one of them was the monastery at Rennes Island. Now Rennes, of course, reminds you of Rennes-le-Château in southern France. So if you take a line from the round church in Tønsberg and draw it over to the monastery at Rennes Island, you end up here, like this. And then, next step would be to take the city of Hamar, which was the last city in the setting here, and draw a line to the city of Bergen, which was then a city of about 7,000 people. So we take the line and pull her over, like so. Now the next part, to be able to continue with this, we're going to have to use the old magic formula, the golden ratio or golden section, which actually nature uses for everything. Everything in nature is built up using this, and the golden means, or golden ratio, is a mathematical formula consisting of 1 divided by 1.618, and it's done in such a fashion that if, or when rather, you make a line and divide it in such a manner that this smallest part is in ratio with the largest part, as the largest part is in ratio with the whole line. Now that is the golden section, and that's what the ancients used when building holy edifices and such. And now we'll see what happens when we use this on our map. So we have this main line, and we got these two lines here. So if we divide this into the golden section, we should get this line divided right here. And if we do the same on the bottom line, just about, I had to experiment a bit with this, so I had to do the opposite actually on the bottom line by placing this here and dividing the line here. Now both these lines are now divided into the golden section. Now then, now that we have the golden ratio placed, we should see what happens. What I did next was to place the ruler on the bottom line golden section, going through the next section and drawing a line connecting these. But I kept going just to see what was on the line. Okay, now for the next line, how about trying from the round church, which was the first main point, and bringing that, or bringing a new line from the round church down to the bottom golden section, like so. Now what is really exciting about this is that this looks like the leg of a pentagram, and the leg of a pentagram measures 36 degrees. So when measuring this point, it measured 36 degrees. Great. Now what we need is another point, or another leg. But where do we draw it? Okay, one way, or rather the way, is to put your compass from the holy point of Bergen and to where these lines cross at the golden section again. So we draw it up like this, like so. Then we have this point here where the golden section line here crosses this main line. Great. So let's see what happens again. If we take a line, draw that in from Bergen through the point we got from using the golden mean once more. So we draw a line from Bergen again and up, meeting the main line, like so. Now we have another leg measuring 36 degrees. Now, next we're going to need a line from Hamar, but I didn't know where to put it or where to cross it. I mean, I couldn't just draw from here to anywhere along this line, which we did not know where it stopped. So I happened to find a parallelogram which stretched from Munkeby to Hamar, and Hamar to the monastery at Utstein, and back up to the Selja monastery, and back up to Munkeby monastery. And these lines were exactly the same length as were these. So what I did was to find the golden section on that line, which I did, and that was placed here. So the next point was to draw a line from the golden section to the bottom golden section, which I did in such a way that this line crossed this line. That would be a perfect place to bring this line through. So when I did, placing it at Hamar, going through this golden section point here, we got it right there. And then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points, measuring 36 degrees each. Okay, now what is fantastic about this, we have now in front of us a pentagram that covers the whole of southern Norway. So if we look at the first point, or one of the points, it's on land on top of a mountain called Large Orkelhø, and on the top are some strange stone markings, circles and such. And the next point, of course, is the medieval city of Hamar. The third point is on the top of another mountain, Blikafjell. And the fourth is Bergen. And the fifth is really exciting. This is on an island. And on this island, where this point ends, is a huge knoll or mountain, and this mountain contains a cave. Now this cave consists of 5 narrow passages leading in to 5 grottos. Penta, again, 5. Now, it's always interesting and important to find the center. And the center of the pentagram we find by drawing lines from the leg and through the middle of the pentagram. And when we find the center and we go here, what do we find? The serpent stave church of the Gnostic Saint Thomas.
I'll sell my rock, I'll sell my ring, I'll sell my only spinning wheel to buy me love a sword of steel. It's good to a morning slum. Shula, 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 rum, shul go sake rocks, shul go kin, shul go under so silly gloom. It's good to a morning slum. I wish in vain. I wish I had my heart again, and really think I'd not complain. It's good to a morning slum. Shula, 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 rum, shul go sake rocks, shul go kin, shul go under so silly gloom. It's good to a morning slum.
Now obviously this sacred geometry that you found massively portrayed in Norway here, it relates to similar sacred geometry that's been found in the south of France, on the island of Bornholm, yes, but it also relates to these wonderful stave serpent churches too. Is that correct?
That's correct. The fact is that the state churches are built according to the golden section.
The very device you used to discover the Holy Pentagram.
Exactly. So I mean, this is the key to it all, really.
Do you know something that I find really fascinating? And that's, I've just finished a book called The Bond Code about Ian Fleming. And Ian Fleming was deeply involved in or researching Gnostic traditions and alchemy. And he lived at a place that he named as Golden Eye, which is the same as the golden mean, the golden ratio, and it's a term that the Sufis used for the golden mean. The golden eye, it reveals the eye of Ra. You know, this shining light, this mystical aspect, this thing that makes you divine, the golden eye. And he placed Golden Eye, what he placed at Golden Eye was a building, his own very sacred spot, the place he went away to contact, to be pure from the ravages of the modern world. And within that very place, we have people like Noel Coward who stayed there saying what an awful place it was because there were serpents all over the walls. So, you know, even in modern things that it would seem completely unrelated, the serpent still comes through, and the wisdom of this. And we've got to really point out that the aspect of serpent worship, which to me is the most important aspect, and that's that it gives rise to the word Sophia. You know, if we break Sophia up into Sophia, using etymology, we get the light of wisdom, the light of the serpent. And so the light of the serpent is Sophia, wisdom. And that is philosophy, philosophia, the love of wisdom. And to me, and I know it is to you too, this is something that is sadly lacking in the world that we're in today.
Now, we mentioned the Gnostics, and this is really incredible. I mean, the center of the pentagram, where the Serpent Church of St. Thomas is placed, once a year they have a sermon there, just once a year. And the date that they hold this sermon is actually on the 2nd of July, which is the day of St. Thomas, the Gnostic saint, brother of Jesus.
Saint, yeah.
Brother of Jesus.
At the very centre.
At the very, very centre.
And anybody who knows anything about symbolism will know that the centre is the most important point. You know.
As we know, pentagrams were often placed within circles. And so, I was very intrigued to find that one was able to place a circle around this one as well, using the Gnostic St. Thomas as the centre. But what was even more exciting, frightening, I don't know what to call it really, but when I measured the circle, I found that the circle had a circumference of 666 miles. And I might point out, as you will see, that one of the pentagram legs sticks out from the circle. And that was, they did this in order to open the circle so that the souls could get in to the kingdom of God. Now we're in the middle of Viking country, and I'd like to show you something that the Vikings have left for us. It's right over here. It's a fire beacon. Now, as well as being a fire of warning, they would also make ball fires on these. And it's a strange thing, but ball in Norwegian actually means a bonfire. And the bonfire they would light to honor Baal, the sun on earth.
And talking about 666, you know, most famous for people who read the Bible or have watched Omen, you know, it's the number of the beast. And of course, the earth itself was called the beast to many people, and the serpent has been equated with the beast also. But another really clever thing that our mutual friend and author Crichton Miller pointed out in his book, The Golden Thread of Time, was that it's revealed in another way. And that is that the Earth itself is tilted, and it's tilted at around 23.4 degrees. And if we take 23.4 degrees from 90 degrees, you know, this
equator,
we end up with 66.6 degrees. Okay, startling, wonderful, but what does it do? We follow 66.6 degrees line of sight into the sky, and what does it point at?
Draconis The serpent.
The serpent. So Harold, we've looked at many things now. We've looked at this wonderful, incredible discovery of yours of the pentagram, which covers vast areas in Norway, placed there by the Celtic Church with the aid of various Viking leaders, who appear to have been many of them taught in England by the people from the Celtic Church, and then come back and try to place this thing on Norwegian land. And we know that there are serpent links here from the Celtic Church. Now, we've also been to this wonderful stave serpent church, which, as you pointed out, one of them was right in the smack in the centre of this pentagram, and there used to be 1,000 of these things. That's an incredible building project all over Norway, in stave churches alone. It's such a shame that they're not there anymore. What things are there about these stave churches which point out that they themselves are linked to serpent worship?
Well, there are several things. I mean, one thing is the geometry itself, and another are the beautiful carvings that you have both on the inside of the church and on the outside. One day I was visiting one of the churches, and there was a slight breeze, and through the trees, through the birch leaves, I just saw the roof of the church. And I said, hey, look, the roof looks exactly like serpent skin.
They are so obvious. There are many churches in Europe where you can go in and you can find serpents, many of them, because not least of which, Jesus himself in the Bible is equated to the brazen serpent of Moses in the wilderness. Moses is told to lift up the brazen serpent, the serpent of brass, or the fiery serpent in the wilderness, and Jesus is equated to that. And that, to me, and to many people who research Ophiolatreia, or the worship of the serpent, points to a certain thing that a snake actually does. And the fact that Jesus goes into the tomb and leaves behind his shroud, or skin, as the word means, with his image upon it, is very similar to what snakes do. Snakes were seen by ancient man to slither off into a dark place, into a cave or a small opening, and to come out resurrected. This is a sacred thing that they were seeing. They were seeing a death and a rebirth, and the serpent would leave behind its skin, its shroud, with its image upon it. A very, very sacred thing that our ancestors saw. So there are many reasons, not least of which also many people are pointing out, Hamish Miller and various other dowsing, that the energy of the earth itself was seen as a serpent, the waveform. So it's a very, very sacred tool, very sacred animal to people for thousands of years. And here, even in the 21st century, you've discovered an absolutely incredibly, magnificently sized pentagram with 666 in there, and at the very centre is a stave serpent church. I find that just incredible that it was so big and so well done that even today, like the Great Wall of China or the pyramids, I equate it to those wonderful things. What you've discovered is no less than the Great Wall of China or the pyramids of Giza. It still can be seen today. De facto, it's there. It cannot be denied. So, it's incredible stuff. But you'd have to ask yourself, what does it mean to us today? My answer to that would be that we look back to our ancestors and we see that they had a different way to us, a different outlook to nature and to life, and they respected the animals, they respected the earth, and they saw a magic in it, you know, that we don't see today. And the magic is gone and the concrete has come in. Well, the time has come for me to leave Harald and his wonderful cabin here high in the mountains of Norway. I've had a wonderful time in this place with grass on the roof and no real toilets, no shower, because this is a place close to nature. And this touches on something that we've been talking about: Celtic church, gnosis, esoteric wisdom. Discovery of the self is all about discovering that we are part of nature. What Harald's discovered is remarkable. It's massive. It's as big as the Great Wall of China or the Great Pyramids of Egypt. But it's something that had to be hidden. He discovered a circle on the ground that measured 666. He discovered a pentagram upside down. And he discovered the serpent. 3 images that we are told and have been told for an awful long time are symbols of evil. But this isn't the truth. The truth is that these are symbols of wisdom, symbols of greater knowledge. And that's what I leave Norway with. A newly found friendship with a great man who lives somewhere I thoroughly envy, and knowledge of ancient wisdom.